It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio, broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
All right, good morning. Scott Luton here with you live on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome to the show. We're coming to you today from Vector Global Logistics, a company that's providing world-class logistics services, all while deeply investing into the communities that they serve. Based here in Atlanta, but with international reach, this company is on the move. You can learn more at vectorgl.com. On a quick programming note, like all of our series on Supply Chain Now Radio, you can find our replays on a variety of channels: Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and wherever else you find your podcast. As always, we'd love to have you subscribe so you don't miss anything. Supply Chain Now Radio is also brought to you by a variety of sponsors, including the Effective Syndicate, Talent Stream, Verison, Apex Atlanta, and several other leading organizations. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about our valuable sponsors. Okay, so let's welcome in my co-host today once again, Mr. Greg White, one of our co-hosts here at Supply Chain Now Radio, a serial supply chain tech entrepreneur and trusted advisor. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Scott.
Great to have you back. We have had a incredible week of shows, I think.
Yeah, it's been a really good week. So. We had some interesting folks in yesterday, and we're looking forward to, or depending on when this publishes, looking back at National Truck Driver Appreciation Week. So that was kind of interesting to talk to the folks in the trucking industry about that.
Well, yeah, 3.5 million men and women, professional men and women that make supply chain and business happen. They deserve more than a week, but it's good. We'll take what we can get and give those folks extra recognition during that week. So let's welcome in for today's show our featured guests here. We have Mary Waters, Deputy Commissioner, International Trade for the Georgia Department of Economic Development. How you doing, Mary?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here in the studio. And then we have Scott McMurray, Deputy Commissioner as well for Global Commerce, though, for the Georgia Department of Economic Development. How you doing, Scott?
Good morning. Doing good. How about you?
We're doing fantastic. Beautiful Georgia morning on this Friday morning. And then we have Doug McMaster, a friend of the show, longtime friend of the show, Senior Vice President, U.S. Operations for Mura America Company. How you doing, Doug?
Great, thank you, and glad to be back.
Absolutely. We had a great show just a couple of months ago with you, Doug, talking about Mura and what makes a lot of y'all's products different from a lot of others in the industry. So looking forward to kind of revisiting that today, and as well as talking about some of the initiatives that Mura is part of. So thanks for coming back. All right. So we're going to dive right in. Greg, I know you've got 17,127 news stories that you brought into the studio today.
I did, and I can do them all in the next 10 seconds if you'd like.
No, we're going to dive. We have some really interesting things to talk about, and something we haven't covered a lot on Supply Chain Now Radio. So we're really excited about the story that's really going to shed some light on the special relationship that the country of Japan has had with Georgia. And talk about some of the things that impacts and some of the things that enables here in the state that's been number one state to do business in for 6 years in a row.
Whoop. How's that for commentary?
Yeah, heavy hitting. So let's start with our guests. Let's before we kind of dive into the red meat of today's conversation. Let's give our guests an opportunity to kind of paint a picture of who they are to our audience. So Mary, let's start with you. Tell us about yourself.
Great. So I have been in Georgia for about 11 years now. I moved here in 2008 from the West Coast originally. I'm a transplanted Oregonian, but really enjoy what I'm doing here in Georgia. But moved to Georgia to take a job with the Department of Economic Development and was hired to be a trade manager for the team. And so I was working with a lot of Georgia-based healthcare companies, medical device, pharmaceuticals, health IT, that were looking for customers and key contacts in global markets. So I did that for about 5 years. Got poached by the private sector, and so worked for a company for a couple of years. I was in charge of their Latin American and African business strategy. And then came back to the department about 4 years ago. And so now I lead the team at the department that works with Georgia-based businesses that are seeking to grow their sales internationally. And it's the best job I've ever had.
Well, and that's a really important component because it's not just about doing business here. So it's about tapping into that international marketplace, right?
Absolutely.
In the global business environment that we're in. So, Scott, how about yourself? Tell us about yourself.
I was born and raised in a small town just north of Boston, Massachusetts. So Red Sox, Bruins, Patriots.
Ooh, there we go.
Celtics. I kind of feel like I'm on Felger and Maz. I don't know if you know
it's
that.
It's a little
radio
too soon
show,
to talk about that Super Bowl. Hasn't been enough years.
That was rough.
I came down for school, Emory University, and then after that went over to Japan. I was one of the first folks to go on the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, the JET program. I taught high schools and college over there. Then I switched to a career in business after learning the language. Came back in 1998, lived in Los Angeles for about 7 years, and then made the move back to Atlanta in 2005 and was hired by the department as kind of the Japan guy to help recruit businesses from Japan but other Asian countries to come here and create jobs for our citizens. And from that point have just worked in the department for, this is my 15th year now, and
Man.
just like Mary, it's the best job I've ever had.
15 years. Wow. So clearly we've already talked about some of the recent success of the economic development team here in Georgia, but if you think about your 15 years, is there anything that has changed the most since when you started to the last few?
The speed at which everything is occurring, especially with businesses making new location or expansion decisions.
Right.
The time frame has become incredibly compressed from when the phone rings and they say, hey, have you got a building or a site for my company, to the time they actually make the decision. It's a real challenge these days. We operate at the speed of business, even though we're a public employees.
Absolutely. And we've seen the fruits of y'all's efforts. I know there's a lot of things that go into landing business expansion and creating jobs and making this a great environment for businesses. But y'all have been on quite a win streak, and we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, and Doug, welcome back once again. I love our conversations. You travel quite a bit as well and maintain full plates, so we had to pry you out today to get you back. But for our listeners that maybe didn't catch that earlier episode, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Doug McMaster with Muir America Company. I lead the team that handles all the sales and the maintenance of our equipment that we manufacture in the United States. It's industrial steam boilers that are used primarily in the brewery, distillery, textile, chemical, healthcare, university, any place that needs steam for a very controllable heat source for many different processes or air heating or water heating, things like that. We're a Japanese-owned company based in Matsuyama, Japan, where I'll be headed tomorrow for a week to take our team of top distributors in the United States as a reward for their hard work. So I'm looking forward to that trip, and always happy to work with Georgia Economic Development. I've been part of the SUS events for the past few years, and I really enjoy it and learn a lot and get to meet some great people there. So.
And it's all work when you go on these trips, all work.
Absolutely.
24 hours a day.
Absolutely. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's right. Good deal. All right. So kind of switching back to Mary and Scott and the Georgia Department of Economic Development. I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders and just supply chain practitioners might have a hunch about what y'all do as an organization. But what do you think folks aren't aware of in terms of some of the things that y'all are involved in terms of pushing industry ahead?
I'll take the first crack at this. I think just based on what my team does, I know that the senior leadership at the department has described our international trade services as the best kept secret in state government, which always trying to work through that.
Yeah, is that really a good deal?
But no, I think when people think about what an economic development department does, they think of that investment attraction. And that is a core component of what we do. But what sets Georgia apart is that we truly take an integrated approach, right? There is the investment attraction arm, but then there is the whole range of existing industry services. And it gets into international trade. So making sure that the companies that come and invest here. Once they're here, no matter where they're from, they're a Georgia business. And so then where can we help them go? And so, are they looking at other global markets? Do they need access to university resources and commercialization? Are they a small business that's looking for resources to get up and grow? What are we doing to foster quality of life here? Our tourism department, Georgia Council for the Arts, is under the banner of economic development. So I think the thing that most people might not realize is that we wear a lot of hats. We're involved in a lot of different elements of the economy to really foster that business environment where companies want to come here, they continue to be successful and thrive here, and that's helped our state grow, and we're really proud of that.
Much broader, and I thought I knew.
Yeah, that's really
much broader than what I had assumed coming in. So it's very interesting, and the quality of life wasn't exactly something I was expecting to hear today. But what a broad mission. Scott, what about you?
Yeah, we sell Georgia. I mean, that is what we do, and I completely agree with Mary. I think the thing that folks don't realize about the department is really the full spectrum, the kind of the holistic or the integrated approach that we take. We're one of the few states that houses all of those divisions: tourism, international trade. Also film. I think you guys know something about the
I've
film.
heard a little something about that.
Right, and that's housed under our department as well. And so all of the job creation functions and divisions are all housed under the Georgia Department of Economic Development. And we're all in one big building, one big happy family together.
Happy and successful family.
That's right.
And we sell Georgia. That's going to be on the back of a T-shirt.
How much are we worth? That's what I like. You're getting good money for us.
And one last thing, the film industry that you touched on. Holy cow! What a when I was growing up, the Dukes of Hazzard and The Heat of the Night, and some of those shows that had some roots and some connections in Newton County, and then just to see how that has really blossomed into, and I know film's been around before that time frame, but to see all the production and see what the impact it's making here in the state across industries. We're going to be doing a future show on the supply chain behind kind of Hollywood, but behind the film production, because that's also a place that's not. There's a lot of gaps in people's understanding of what it takes to make a multi-million-dollar production. So good stuff there, much broader. So switching gears over to Doug. Doug, one thing we want to make sure that our audience knows more about is how y'all's products and your boilers are differentiated so much more than a lot of other standard boilers that you see in industry.
Sure. So the analogy I use is you can imagine the tankless water heater being installed in homes nowadays. It's space saving, it's energy saving. It's a small box that mounts on the wall, holds a few ounces of water, and it heats that water up and guarantees that you've got hot water in your house when you need it. We take that same concept and put it into an industrial scale. So we have modular boilers that can be installed one at a time, and then as a customer or a plant, factory, whatever it is, as they grow, they can add additional modules, and all those modules, all those individual boilers act as one system.
Wow.
And they can save the end user of the plant thousands, or we have a couple instances where it saves them over $1 million a year in fuel costs because it's so energy savings. The traditional technology is a very large piece of equipment that holds thousands of gallons of water. It's very slow to heat up, and very slow to cool down, and very slow to react to the changes in the factory's needs. So that's how we are successful, because we can be very quick reacting to whatever the facility needs, and that's why we've become so popular. We are the largest boiler manufacturer in the world. Over 150,000 units have been sold around the world, and we're celebrating our 60th year this year, 60th anniversary. So,
and I think one of the interesting things I read about you all is the gas-fired aspect of it. Scott's from up north. I had a house in New York myself, and those are usually fuel oil or even coal-fired,
right,
which obviously is a major issue in this day and age. So I think it's interesting the way that you are helping companies lessen their carbon footprint while still producing the kind of energy that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. In the United States, there's an initiative to switch from coal where it makes sense, and so we're right there along with it. But our biggest market right now for that is in China. They have a government mandate to get rid of coal, and so our company is over there and very successful. We've opened, I think we have over 100 offices in China that have opened just in the past less than 10 years because of that initiative. And from the stories that I hear, the air over there is becoming cleaner and cleaner. So it's having a good effect.
They're the net largest producer of carbon emissions, or near the top, correct? So I think that's a good initiative to have, because they can have probably one of the biggest impacts on the planet.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, so our listeners may not have picked up on the connection between our guests here today. Mura, Doug just mentioned, Mura is celebrating its 60th anniversary as a company, right?
That's right.
But their 10th anniversary here in Georgia.
That's right.
And of course, the economic development team here in the state of Georgia has played a big part in helping get Mura established here, and not just there as Mary spoke to, but helping them become successful. Because as every company, as they grow, needs change. And so we're going to dive more into that in a minute. But before we talk more about the Mura story, Mary and Scott, we want to talk more about that special relationship that the country of Japan and Georgia enjoy. So, but tell more about why Georgia for business. I mean, we're all partial here, and while we have a global audience and we serve that global audience, as we tell Ben Harris with the Metro Atlanta Chamber, we have our Atlanta tattoos, right? We're ambassadors for Atlanta and Georgia. But for folks that may not have picked up on the opportunity that Georgia is for doing business and growing business, why Georgia? We'll start with Scott.
Sure. We have an incredibly business-friendly environment here in Georgia, low-tax environment. We've got incredible workforce. If you want the elevator speech, what I usually say to folks is what really kind of has Georgia way ahead at the very beginning of the game is three things. We have Atlanta, Metro Atlanta. We are the capital of the Southeast. I mean, other cities can try to claim that, but we are really the biggest. All the amenities you have here, the sports, the medical, the financial.
Crossroads.
Everything, right? That you could possibly want in a regional, southeastern capital. Number two is Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson, the busiest airport in the world for 21 years in a row now, I believe.
Something like that.
Last year
Pretty much since the Olympics.
They had over 100 million people transit the airport last year in a single year. Just incredible efficiency. The joke here a lot of times in Atlanta is when you die, you may go to heaven, you may go to hell, but you got to transit through Atlanta.
That's right.
To
You
get
got to change
there,
planes in Atlanta. That's right.
And then number three, I would say, is the Port of Savannah. It is the fastest growing seaport in the United States. Currently, it's the fourth largest. It is the most efficient in terms of getting containers on and off and in and out of the yards there. And that really already, if you look at some of the other our competition, that puts us way ahead of the game. But then we also are focusing a lot these days, obviously, on workforce, on talent, and Georgia with our quality of life here. We show the companies that we have the folks to get you going. We have the schools, the technical schools, the Quick Start training program to get them trained up. And we also can recruit people from other parts of the country.
No doubt. And it's happening.
Yes. We have a net in migration every year, more than 100,000 people coming into the state. So we do have a lot of great things and a great story to tell here in Georgia.
Well put. Easy sell. Right? Easy sell to make, for sure. So switching gears a little bit, because we want to talk more now about the history of this relationship between the country of Japan and Georgia. So maybe, Mary, why don't you start to tell our audience about that history and maybe where it got its roots?
Yeah. And great question. And I think this also goes to the heart of something that does set Georgia apart, which is that we do have this global focus. And we want to make sure that those relationships that we develop, we're working on that for the long term. These aren't short-term plays. These aren't opportunistic plays. When we build out those international relationships. We're doing that for the long haul to develop bilateral trade corridors and investment partnerships and everything that goes with that. And so our office in Tokyo, Georgia, has an economic development office in Tokyo, and we established that office in 1973. And so we've had continuous operation there for more than 45 years. And so that was an initiative that started under then Governor Carter, who saw the opportunities and wanted to attract Japanese investment, not to the southeast, but to Georgia, and knew that one of the best ways to do that and really to get the message out was to have boots on the ground, to talk about where Georgia was, what the assets were, and to build that relationship. Because that's the thing that my team and that I encounter in our job. Innovation is taking us to amazing places, but the heart of international business is the relationship and cultivating that relationship. And so we stick very closely to that, right? It's a tenet for us, that those international relationships are important. And so what you see is we established a foothold in the Japanese market in 1973. The government of Japan opened their consular office, the Consulate General of Atlanta, I think in 1974.
Wow.
That was the same year, I believe, that Aflac Corporation kind of got into the Japanese market.
Interesting.
Which
is a big piece of their business.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something like 70% of their revenue comes from Japanese customers. And so once you start getting that kind of build up, I mean, those connections build rewards. But so that kind of set the playing field for more of a regional coalition of southeastern states to really market themselves to Japanese manufacturers. And so in 1976, Georgia spearheaded an effort with 6 other southeastern states to really come together and get on the radar for Japan and Japanese companies. And that's how SUS Japan, the Southeastern U.S. Japan Association, that's how that alliance was born.
Yep.
Wow.
And so now when you look at where we are in terms of the strength of the Japanese relationship for Georgia, hundreds of Japanese companies call Georgia home. Those facilities employ tens of thousands of Georgians. I mean, Mura is a great example of that. Japan is a top 10 export market. It's the 4th largest trading partner for Georgia overall. And so the longer you're in those relationships and the more time and attention that you pay to those relationships, they continue to reap benefits. And so SUS Japan is part of it. Our presence on the ground in Tokyo is part of it. And then, you get a good foothold of Japanese businesses that are operating here, and you get them to tell our story for us.
Right.
And the ball just keeps rolling, and it's really a great success.
I think that's a really great alignment because Japan is well known for taking a very, very long-range approach, and for us to align that way with a long-range perspective is critical, right, to creating a business culture that melds well together.
I was wondering, in '73, that had to be a pretty risky endeavor. I mean, people probably thought that was a crazy idea, and look where it is today. But at the time,
it's paid off in spades. Going back to a couple things you touched on, Mary, international business and how it's still rooted in relationships, and going back to the airport, a lot of folks may not understand why that's so important of having a world-class airport here in Atlanta. We've had folks come on the show, and we've had plenty of sidebar conversations when folks are doing site selection. The fact you can get in and get out of Atlanta and be right here and go to the plant or to your corporate offices or what have you, so you can have that face-to-face. And even in this era, as a digital media organization, we appreciate how technology has evolved and allows folks to connect. But nothing, in my opinion, still can replace that face-to-face handshake. There's that understanding. You're working through problems, or you're building and expanding your business, or whatever it is. That is so important, and the infrastructure we have here allows that to happen. One of the quick factoid is some of our listeners may not understand that Aflac is based in Columbus, Georgia.
That's right.
And so that famous commercial and ongoing commercial. Has been around for years with the duck. That's based right here in Georgia. Okay, so let's. Scott, anything else you want to weigh in on that special Japan-Georgia relationship before we kind of move to a case study in it?
I would just say that the state of our relationship with Japan has never been stronger.
That's good.
Yes. Again, from 1973 on, and good economic times and tough ones, we have never closed that office. We show to the Japanese market that we're in it for the long haul, shoulder to shoulder, just moving forward.
That's great.
Absolutely. Commitment.
Can you say that in Japanese?
I can, but you would not understand it. So you couldn't tell if it was right or wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. All right. So let's switch gears a little bit here. We've touched a little bit on the Mura story, but Doug, really, y'all's company's success and expansion into the state of Georgia and success since, it comes out and is really born out of this special relationship, right?
That's right. That's right. It started 10 years ago. Actually, we're getting ready to celebrate the 10-year anniversary this month. Coincidence that we're here today. But we've been in the U.S., operating in the U.S. for 30 years. We celebrated our 30th anniversary 2 years ago, and we were manufacturing all of our U.S. products at the time out of a factory in Ontario, Canada, which is still there. It's our sister facility in North America, and 10 years ago, because of the growth of our business in the United States, we had some sales offices and service offices, but we didn't have any manufacturing here. And I wasn't with the company at the time, but I've learned that business was doing so well that we needed to expand and have something to manufacture in the U.S. To save money and to build this equipment closer to the end users. And we were looking at places in Dallas, Texas. That was one key area we were looking at because we had a decent customer base there. But at the time, we found out about Georgia. We had an office here, a sales office here, and we found out that there was some very attractive reasons to be based here in the Georgia area, Atlanta metro area. And my colleagues at the time reached out to Georgia Economic Development and got to meet this gentleman sitting next to me, and he was one of the key figures in getting us based here in Polk County. And I think he has a good story to tell about that.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah, the phone rang one day, and I picked it up.
In the world.
And now you know the rest of the story.
The rest of the story. And the city of Rockmart and Polk County were a fantastic partner for the project. They had a spec building that the community had invested in and built in the hopes of luring a quality manufacturing company to come and create jobs for the folks out there. And it just ended up being a great fit. And that's what we always look for is the win-win between what the company requires and what the community is looking for and is able to provide. And the state facilitates the deal. And I was lucky enough to get to go all the way to Matsuyama to visit the headquarters there. And it's not really easy to get to Matsuyama either.
It's planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah.
It is in a more of a rural part of Japan, the Shikoku Island, which is the smallest of the four, but absolutely gorgeous geography. You can take a train to go over the inland sea there, seeing fishing boats and freighters and all kinds of economic activity. It's a great place.
So once we met with Scott and his team, we started doing some more research and found that the cost of living, obviously, in this part of the country was better than a lot of other places, and we also had a built-in workforce. We rely extremely a lot on welders. Welders are used to manufacture our equipment, and coincidentally there had been another business nearby that had recently downsized, and they had we found a lot of talent that was waiting for a job, and so we were able to hire those folks in and get our factory up and running very quickly and efficiently. So it was a great place to be. It was, obviously, as you mentioned, near the airport, where the facility is less than 50 miles from the airport. By the way, I want to point out I travel 30 weeks out of the year. And although Atlanta Airport's the busiest, it's also the most efficient one.
It is very well organized.
I don't have a problem ever, here that's of any major issue. So and I'm not just saying that because I live here, but I go to all the airports all over the country, and nobody beats us.
Yeah.
Well, they were recognized with the 2019 Atlanta Supply Chain Awards. They were recognized for their supply chain excellence. A lot of folks. I know, Doug, you're referring to the passenger experience. A lot of folks also don't know about the airport, how much freight goes in and out of there, especially in this day and age where we're dealing with some other challenges. But it's testimony. We hear this quite often. I mean, about how efficient the Atlanta airport is compared to others. So you listed there, Doug, some of the reasons what makes Metro Atlanta and by extension Georgia a great place for business. What else that has Mura really experienced that has made has led to a lot of y'all's success?
Well, I mean, I think it's the people, the people, the culture of the area. Our expats. We have many expats that travel to come and help us to build our business over the years, and they're still coming back and forth as advisors and managers and helpers. And our president is Japanese here, and I think the expats that come here, that's what they really appreciate is the local community. They get along well. Everybody just really wants to help each other, and it's a very, very positive relationship that we have. So I think that's key to it. And there's just a built-in Japanese population around Metro Atlanta. So when they come here, they have schools that they can send their kids to. They've got medical facilities that they want to send their family members to because it just is more comfortable for them because what they're used to. So there's just a lot of built-in infrastructure that a Japanese company wants to be in this area because there's just a lot of support that they can get. It's a really good place for them to live and work.
And food, we could talk a lot about the quality of the Japanese food that's here available.
Yeah.
Good point. All right, so are y'all doing anything? And we didn't talk about this pre-show, but for y'all's 10th anniversary, what's the? How are we celebrating? Are we?
Yeah, we've got our chairman from Japan, Mr. Mr. Takahashi will be here, and Scott will be one of our keynote speakers because of his involvement for the last 10 years. He'll be addressing the group and talking about his involvement and getting us where we are today. So that's going to be in a couple weeks.
Fantastic. Is it going to be a public event, or is it going to be focused on the employee? How are y'all going to roll it out?
Yeah, it's going to be employees, and some of our distributors from around the United States are going to be coming in. It's going to be really focused on thanking our employees. It's going to be our factory team will be there, engineers, everybody from within our headquarters facility, and other people from the community. Polk County will be there, and obviously Georgia Economic Development will be helping us out. But it's going to be a good event to really show appreciation for where we've come the last 10 years.
Love that. We got to celebrate. There's so much to celebrate when you've made, especially in manufacturing. I mean, great day in the morning. Having been there and done that, especially on the metal stamping side, I mean, putting out fires day in and day out. You're making stuff. You're making highly engineered materials. So hopefully y'all have a big celebration. Sounds like you've got some big plans in store to celebrate 10 years here in Georgia and 60 years in general. All right, so let's switch gears over to what Mary had touched on earlier, Seuss Japan. A really neat event, and for a number of different reasons. I think back to the relationship building and the information exchange and pulling people together. I mean, really a special event that I'm sure has added to the success of the business landscape here. So what is Seuss Japan? Let's start there. What is it for our listeners?
So Seuss Japan, it's an alliance of 7 southeastern states and a business council and a group of large multinational corporations in Japan. And so Georgia was one of the founding members. Florida is in the alliance, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and the Carolinas, both North and South Carolina. And so that's kind of the southeast cohort, the Seuss part.
Yes.
Right.
SEC, ACC part of the Seuss.
So I think so a little bit of personal information. I did my graduate work at University of Florida.
Okay.
So didn't know that.
Go
People are
Gators.
tuning out all over the world.
Didn't know that.
All over Atlanta.
But I will say that I think the strength of the relationship is reinforced by the fact that all these people, SEC, ACC, people that live and breathe, these different rivalries still come together.
Absolutely.
And have come together every single year for 42 years.
Wow.
to put some rivalries and some competition aside and keep focused on the strength of the relationship and how powerful keeping those relationships up can be as an economic driver for our entire region. And so really in the 70s, in 1976, the leaders of the southeastern states really got together. Investment attraction is intensely competitive. Not so much on the trade side. We're more collaborative. We're more friendly on the trade side, but it's a little bit different ballgame when we're trying to win that project. But everybody recognized that there was a real need that Japanese business didn't really understand what the Southeast could offer in terms of an investment location, right? There might have been familiarity with the West Coast and California, maybe New York, Texas,
Michigan.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah,
the Midwest for automotive manufacturing. And so the leaders in the Southeast got together as like, we need to truly come together and have a united front and market ourselves, market the region.
That capability.
To attract that Japanese and specifically automotive OEM. That was the original the original focus of the alliance was to attract Japanese automotive companies to the Southeast. And we've been successful in that. We've got plenty of automotive supply chain companies from Japan that have established their offices here. But so that's the history, right? It took a lot of foresight and a lot of leadership 4 decades ago to come together and put competition aside.
Well, so on that note, putting the competition aside and kind of, I know we're kind of tongue in cheek talking football conferences and basketball conference and all, but really. We all know there's also, as we just touched on, there's competition between the states. But there's this word co-opetition has been gaining relevance, I think, in recent years, where, to your point, in today's day and age, you've got to put, we're all going to come from different walks of life and have different approaches to things, but there's so much to gain if we can put on our adult britches and come together, right, for the greater good, and whether it's for business or plenty of other things. And it sounds like y'all, for 42 years now, there's been a sense of camaraderie to build and bring in and work together as a team to land more investments in this part of the country, right, and being able to do that. Yep. So SUSE Japan, before we talk about SUSE Japan for 2019 and some of the keynotes and some of the reasons to attend, Scott, anything else you would like to add to kind of the history or kind of the DNA that's part of the initiative?
I like that word, that co-opetition. I think that's the first time I've heard that, so you get points right there for that one, Scott.
$1 per usage, please.
Yes. The thing about the Southeast U.S. Japan Conference, even putting aside kind of the special relationship that we have with Japan, is that co-opetition. When we're able to recruit a new company to come somewhere in the region, in the Southeast region, it's a win for everybody. And competition between the states makes us all stronger, makes us all more efficient, right? Makes us work harder. That's really the American way. That's what it's all about. But for example, for the Volkswagen plant to locate in Chattanooga, we've got a lot of Georgia folks that can work at that plant, right? So again, it's the bigger picture for our state, Georgia, our department. We take a very but we take a soft sell approach. I mean, we know who we are, we know what we have, we know what we can do. We tend to under promise and over deliver is kind of one of our mantras at the department. And the SUSE Japan conference is just a great example of the way we work economic development here.
Yes, so something you allude to, and something our listeners, I'm sure everyone here at the table and our listeners can speak to, that clustering effect, especially with automotive and aerospace in particular. Right. When Kia is having an incredible year that they're having in West Point, Georgia.
Right, it's accrued to the benefit of other Asian countries as well.
Absolutely,
right?
that, and think of the tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that are located regionally at least, if not globally or nationally. Of course, I'm originally from Aiken, South Carolina, so when BMW went in there and Governor Campbell landed that business, that had a great effect across the region as well. So while it's great for Georgia to have these wins that the state here has had for seems like quite a so with Braves fandom know about the streak, 14 years of winning a division. And y'all you've been creating your own streak of your own here, which is, again, it's great for folks that are in Georgia doing business, but it's great regionally, it's great nationally. So, and so Seuss Japan, though, is kind of, it's a vehicle to pull all these forces, these powerful forces together and build these relationships that really benefits, like we're talking about, benefits everybody. So with Seuss Japan, which is coming up in October, right? In Savannah. It's the first time it's been here, hosted by Georgia since when, Mary?
Since 2004.
Okay, and in 2004 it was in Atlanta, correct?
That's right.
So the Seuss Japan attendees are going to be able to experience some of the great Savannah hospitality, one of the neatest cities in the world.
Yeah, and food.
Oh, yeah, food.
And
Scott's
food
point.
and music. I
Yes.
mean, you name it, right?
Yeah.
It's the hostess city there.
It is it's a great place to represent Georgia for sure.
Yep. So beyond the city, and it sounds like we're all big fans of Savannah here, but beyond the city and the locale, why else should our listeners, or why else would business leaders attend Seuss Japan?
I mean, this is a very business-focused conference, and I think to go back and just take the Georgia-specific view, we know that it takes time, right, to land the next big greenfield investment from Japan or for anywhere. But in the meantime, you've got this incredibly diverse network of Japanese businesses that have been in Georgia for a long time.
Right.
10 years, 40 years. YKK was the first Japanese company to ever invest in the state of Georgia, and they're still here and they're still growing strong.
Doing well.
And still the best.
And so what we want to do with this conference really is get to the heart of the matter, right? Have a room full of business leaders and political leaders, the people who are invested in continuing to grow this relationship, having a real conversation about what is going to keep our Japanese businesses and our Southeastern businesses globally competitive. And so since Georgia is the host state and we won't get this opportunity for another 14 years to show off our state again, we're really focusing in on logistics and supply chain assets and workforce development and workforce partnerships. Those issues that are critically important, they might keep some executives up at night, but it's where Georgia and the Southeast leads. And we lead by having this conversation, having this dialogue between, elected officials, VIPs, the business community, state economic development agencies. It's like, how do we fix problems? How do we figure out what the next trends are coming down the line so that we all stay ahead of the curve and we stay globally competitive? And so companies, regardless of industry, and regardless of whether they're a Japanese company here, we welcome attendees. You don't have to be interested in doing business in Japan even. This is a business conference focused around Georgia's logistical assets and our workforce assets and how we can continue to partner to stay on top of things. And so the networking is incredibly valuable. The quality of the speakers that we have, representing their corporate histories and what they're doing and challenges that they might be seeing and how they're working to fix it. That's information that any business leader really needs to know.
Any opportunity you can have to get more minds together is a great opportunity to make progress. So we have the opportunity to talk about technology a lot here. And one of the great leaders of artificial intelligence of all things said, you don't need better algorithms, you need more. You need And it's very similar to the human condition, right? You put more people with varied and diverse backgrounds and thoughts and points of view in a room, and you get a much, much better solution, much more quickly as well.
This will be my fourth conference to attend, and I can tell you that the networking is unbelievable. The relationships that I've been able to establish at Seuss, at the conference, help my company today. So, it's some of those. I go to conferences all over the United States, and this is probably one of the best as far as giving me access to some really good powerful people that can help our business, and we can help theirs. It's a sort of a two-way street.
I think that relationship aspect is something that people really recognize here in Atlanta, because everybody who's from Atlanta at this table, raise your hand. Right? I mean,
So to our audience, no one raised
no
their
one
hand.
raised their hand. Yeah, if you're not watching on video.
Let the record reflect.
Yes, that's right. So I think that's something that's well understood here, and I also think, as someone who came here from elsewhere myself, that this is a very inviting environment. I mean, you feel at home right away. You're from Boston. I moved here from Arizona. The first time somebody talked to me in line at the grocery store, I reached for my wallet instinctively, but they really just wanted to talk. But I think that inviting and welcoming culture is an important part of how Georgia operates.
Absolutely. You have to show that you are open to everybody and anybody, for business. Business is business. And the opportunity for us for hosting the SUS conference was we were able to come up with the themes for the conference. And every single company that we meet with that is looking to either relocate or have a new location in Georgia, the very first question that they ask us is, where's our workforce? You have to show us that you have the talent and you have the people that are going to contribute to our success, because we need to grow, so we need to find a place that will grow with us. So having the workforce theme, I think, is extremely important, as you know, with the good economy, unemployment rate coming down, labor market getting tighter. There are challenges, and so we're going to address those with some great speakers and panels. And then the other logistics, supply chain. We're also going to have for the attendees the chance to go on a tour of the Port of Savannah. And if you've ever been there and seen the cranes and the trucks and the containers and the rail,
amazing.
It is phenomenal. It is
Just the scale of it is
it blows you away. It really does. It looks like something that's CG effects or something that is not even real. And so that's going to be a big, a very popular, I think, tour as well for the folks, especially coming from Japan.
Yep. So, Mary, you mentioned it might be 14 years before Georgia's able to host again. So I'm going to make a bold prediction here. So Atlanta hosted this event in 76, in 1990, and then, as you mentioned, in 2004. And it's coming back 2019 to Savannah. I bet next year y'all gonna have so much fun in Savannah. They're gonna say, you know what, 2020, it's back in Savannah. We had too much fun. Food and the environment and locale's too good. But kidding aside, what a home run! I'm looking down through the agenda now. I'm between the tours that you mentioned, which we, of course, this episode is going to be one of those for us that is very heavily unbalanced, right? We're showing some of the Georgia colors and some of the Georgia pride.
We've got our tats covered, though.
Yeah. But I think the opportunity here for folks that may be in California or maybe overseas in Italy or what have you, it's about benchmarking, right? Georgia also does a great job between the private and the public sector of sharing a lot of what has worked here so well. And that's one of the reasons you think of the ports, which Scott just mentioned. That tour, that is, when you walk into that operation and see how they run that thing, and you see the metrics on the wall, and you see the operation, things coming off the ship, and the trucks lined up, and how things are constantly moving, you can't help but to leave with ideas for applying in your even if I don't know how many folks run a port these days, but even in your operation, any kind of manufacturing, logistics, or supply chain operation. But beyond the tours, I mean, the keynotes between YKK, UPS, Kajima USA, Mitsubishi, who has a manufacturing division down there, Toyota Motor Corporation. I mean, Toto USA, which is also another great success story here in Georgia. Just a kind of a who's who. So you're going to hear, I'm assuming, you're going to hear a lot of thought leadership and business insights from these folks during these keynote and panel sessions, right?
Absolutely. And not unlike what we're doing here, we really want this to be a conversation. And I think we recognize that Japanese culture can be more formal, right? And it's one of the things that makes it interesting and fun. But at the end of the day, we're all business leaders, and we need to be having a conversation so that we stay on top of the game. And so it's for us, Seuss Japan it's about weaving those things together. It's about showing all of our attendees a good time in Savannah, and mixing that fun with the business, and also really blending that culture, right? Recognizing what makes Japanese culture great, and this is our Southeast culture, this is our Georgia culture, and where do we meet in the middle? We meet with business. And so our roundtable discussions are going to be excellent. We've got for the logistics and supply chain panel, Griff Lynch, who's the executive director of the Georgia Ports Authority. He's moderating that discussion, so that's going to be a great opportunity. Richard Warner is leading the workforce partnerships panel, and so if anybody can tell a good story, it's Richard, and so he's going to really get to the meat of it. And we've got some great high level keynotes, right, to reinforce where we're going in the bilateral relationship, U.S. Japan and Southeast Japan.
Industry in general.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So.
Not all about the current state; it's about the future state, right? So I was struggling to say Mitsubishi Hitachi Power Systems is the organization center in Savannah. We had Mitsubishi
Electric Train
Train on the show earlier this week, and a really neat collaboration story, modern progressive collaboration story. We'll have to have someone on from Mitsubishi Hitachi Power Systems to see if it's a similar type initiative.
I know a guy.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hook you up.
It's good. That is good to have. That is good to have.
By the way, Scott, I think Mary's keeping her cards close to her vest here, but I can tell you in the past we've had the governors of most of the 7 states in attendance, and they get a chance to speak to the group. We've had the U.S. ambassador to Japan. We've had the Japanese ambassador to the United States there. Jeff Immelt was there in Greenville, South Carolina a couple years ago, and the year before that, Secretary Condoleezza Rice was the keynote in Birmingham. So I don't know who Mary's got up her sleeve, but I'm not putting too much pressure on her. But
get there and find out.
It's got to be good. We've got to have somebody good.
We were hoping to make a big splash today, but Mary, for production purposes, we got to keep things under our sleeves, right? So, just with what's been public, a strong lineup, and going back to beyond the keynote, you got tours, you got the networking, you've got the relationship building across 7 states, and then of course the international component as well, which is so important. So, great event. And so, how can if they like what they've heard here today, how can folks learn more about the event?
I would send them to the website, Seuss Japan, SEUS Japan 2019.com, and that's all the information about the history, the program, who the key players are, and how to get registered, and also to contact us with for more information about what's going on at the conference.
So, Doug, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. So you've been this will be your 4th one you attend?
4th, and what they do is they alternate back and forth. So one year it's in the U.S. in the home state for that year, and then it goes to Japan the following year. So last October it was in Tokyo, and then next year it'll be in Japan.
Your prediction probably won't come
Probably
true.
Probably not. Thanks for pointing that out. So
I've already been laying bets against that.
Yes. So what is if there's one thing above all the rest that you're really looking forward to, in October with Seuss Japan, what is that one thing that brings you back each year?
As you can imagine, when a Japanese company comes to the United States, sometimes there can be a sort of a culture shock between how business is conducted in Japan versus here in the United States. And this event gives me the ability to talk to other people who work for other Japanese companies doing work here, and how do they deal with certain situations here in the U.S. How have they overcome and adapted and become successful? How did Toyota, Mitsubishi, Honda, all these companies, how did they turn the corner? Sony, they're not part of the group, but those kind of companies always remind me, how did they turn the corner in the United States and become successful? So I'd like to ask those kind of questions for these groups and try to improve our company here in the U.S.
Yeah, great.
Coming back with 27 pages of notes, all right?
Yeah.
Where can we start? Well, all right, so SeussJapan2019.com. That's SEUS Japan2019.com for more information, to register, to even sponsor, to be a part of this event. And Doug, for folks that might be interested in Mura, how can folks reach out to you?
Yeah, please go to our website, mirrorboiler.com. That's MIURA boiler, BOILER.com, and you can find all about our products and our offices around the United States, and then also our parent company in Japan.
Fantastic. Well, Doug, Mary, and Scott, great conversation. I know that we're just kind of it's tough to do things justice in an hour. We're kind of skimming the surface a little bit, but great opportunity for folks down in Savannah in October to really, as Doug put it, move their business forward. So thanks so much for taking time to join us here on Supply Chain Now Radio.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think
Thank you.
thanks. I really appreciate what you guys are doing at the Department of Economic Development, particularly considering what's happening in Europe now. Not to change the topic too much from Japan, but there are going to be markets looking for new markets, right? So the experience, the dedication, the long-sightedness that you have, I think will accrue to our benefit in that regard as well.
Agreed.
Thank you.
We'll be ready. So we've been talking with Mary Waters, Deputy Commissioner, International Trade for the Georgia Department of Economic Development, Scott McMurray, Deputy Commissioner, Global Commerce for the same organization, Doug McMaster, Senior Vice President, U.S. Operations with Mura America Company. Thanks so much, Mary, Scott, and Doug, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to wrap up today's episode like we always do on some of the upcoming events we're going to be at. We invite our listeners to come out and join us in person. And Greg, we're moving into a pretty busy it's trade show season. Fall's here,
Next
football's
week.
here,
Yeah.
MLB playoffs are here, and trade show
shows.
season is here. Hopefully it'll be cooler.
No
so,
cool cards or anything like that.
That's
for
right.
Trade shows, though.
So not to turn the tenor too much, but we're going to be in North Charleston, South Carolina, September 12th and 13th. And what's going on there?
So that is the AIAGSCAC. It's a mouthful, isn't it? The Automotive
Every time.
Industry Action Group and the South Carolina Automotive Council, again, with future South Carolina Governor Amy Tinsley. I'm pulling for her anyway.
You're building a pack for
I am,
her,
aren't
for
I?
sure.
Right,
Yes.
right here, I've got $1. No, but a lot of great speakers and producers there. So Bosch, Volvo, BMW, Mercedes will all be talking to folks from there and talking about the automotive trade in South Carolina.
Yep. Focused on the world of
Some of that
automotive.
co-opetition.
Yes. Lots of competition, but it benefits everybody. In particular, this event is going to be focused on the supply chain and quality related to the world of
Right.
automotive. So our live broadcast there is sponsored by our friends at the Effective Syndicate. And again, it's 12th through the 13th in North Charleston. And of course, you mentioned the coast these days. Our prayers and best wishes to everyone that may be impacted with what's going on now. I know we're all ready for Hurricane Dorian to be done, but certainly a lot of tragic images and stories coming out of the Bahamas. Which if you're listening to this conversation, you want to figure out how to help beyond sending prayers and best wishes, and you've got a supply chain infrastructure, you can check out an incredible nonprofit called Allen Aid. And what Allen Aid does, Greg, and we've had Kathy Fulton, who leads the organization, on the show before. Allen basically marshals the supply chain organizations from the private sector and brings them to bear to address and to help in a very meaningful, practical, as you might imagine, supply chain type of way.
Right.
Action, deeds, not words, to help folks that are been impacted by natural disasters. So if you're listening, check out Allen, ALAN, aid, AID.org for more information there.
Good news for Charleston, though. The surge did not even crest the seawall, so that's
outstanding
good
news.
for them. Yeah, there is some good news.
Okay, so it's tough. It's always tough to move along to on a much lighter note. But on a much lighter note, October 9th, the Georgia Manufacturing Summit is going to be taking place right here in Atlanta at the Cobb Galleria. Right, Greg?
That's correct.
Greg, you're going to be leading our live broadcast there, where they've got keynotes from P&G and Kia Motors, and expecting about 1,000 people to come out.
We've got our own top secret.
Yes, you do.
Guests
Related to
don't we?
trade.
Some
International trade, as a matter of
international
fact.
trade
Yeah.
ministers. Well, we'll let that slip out, but we
Yeah.
can't say what countries or yet.
So we all can tease a little bit here. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that. I'll be leading a panel session, Trends of Track in Supply Chain. We've got folks from Point A, which is an innovation center dedicated to supply chain management, UPS, Mitsubishi Electric, Train, HVAC US. I
Yes.
think I've got that right.
That's very good.
And MTX Industries, which is a fast-growing, successful surface and flooring company that is also international, which received our Atlanta Supply Chain Awards Sustainability Excellence Award.
Right.
We've got their Chief Sustainability Officer coming on the panel. So we've got just our panel alone, which is one of the breakouts. So we've got a lot of great folks you're going to want to hear from. One last note about the summit. Jason Moss, who leads the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance, has opened up 50 free seats, free and clear, no strings attached, 50 free seats for our veterans. And our veterans, I was an Air Force veteran. We struggle with having that private network oftentimes. You transition out, you're ready to find that private sector job, and you don't much, unlike folks in the private sector, you don't have that network that can help you find and uncover opportunities. So 50 free seats. If you're a veteran listening to this, you can use code USAVET on the registration screen and get them while they're still available. So GeorgiaManufacturingSummit.com. That is October 9th here in Atlanta. Looking forward to that.
Lloyd from Vetlanta helping us get the word out
word out
as well.
Yeah, Lloyd Knight, a proud UPSer, also an Air Force veteran as well, and that's one of the biggest challenges. Being a veteran, and when I came out in 2002, you didn't know what you didn't know, right? You didn't even know the value, or I didn't. I don't want to speak too broadly, but you don't know the value of some of these networking functions. You don't oftentimes know exactly what you're looking for. So part of what we have to do is educate the veteran community on what can really help their careers, and if they already have found their career track, what can help them advance.
Yep.
Those are two big things here. So great gesture by GMA. And then Austin, tell us what's going on in Austin November 7th and 8th.
Yeah, we're going to help keep Austin weird. The EFT. Mary knows what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
A Portland thing, I think.
EFT Logistics CIO Forum there. So we had a great EFT event here in Atlanta some months back, and they put together about 300 top decision makers in the supply chain industry, a number of them CIOs, and they share ideas, and they share ideas with potential solution providers as well. Always a great opportunity to put more heads together, create solutions. So looking forward to that. November 7th and 8th in Austin.
That's right. And then you flip the calendar. It's hard to believe we're talking Thanksgiving and Turkey Day already, but in February we'll be in Vegas with the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo, which is also based in Atlanta. They're a global organization, but based in Atlanta. As we all know, reverse logistics is a
major topic.
Yeah, major topic. It's important today. It's going to continue to be more important as companies are trying to figure out how to handle returns.
Yeah.
Right? We think about
it goes to economics, sustainability, logistics, all of those.
Yep.
All of those complexities come into play with that.
I'm not going to point any fingers, but someone at this table orders 6 pairs of shoes and sends 5 back. And we got to
You just did point fingers.
So companies.
I've got it on camera to prove it.
We're kidding a bit, but companies, that is a fact of
I had not
the
really
consumer
thought of
age.
that. Yeah, I can't believe that.
So how are we processing that, and how are we, in a sustainable way, right?
Yeah.
In a successful way. But RLA is doing great work there. Looking forward to being there in Vegas in February. And then lastly, which, testament again to the economic development team, amongst other things. So MODEX, which is one of the largest supply chain trade shows in North America, comes here every other year, in Chicago with ProMat, and then here in Atlanta for MODEX. MODEX 2020, coming here to Atlanta in March. You're expecting 35,000 folks across the end-to-end supply chain. It's free to attend. Talk about great resources.
Yeah.
MODEXshow.com, and not only are we broadcasting live there all 4 days, but they are hosting
the Atlanta Supply Chain Awards.
Yes, which we're excited about.
Yeah.
The 2020 Atlanta Supply Chain Awards, our second year event, is hosted there by MODEX at the Georgia World Congress Center. So more information. We've been promising that forever, but we've had some heavy lifting we've had to do. But we are working on a keynote from one of the most
another top secret teaser.
Top secret. Well, an organization that doesn't do a lot of public speaking,
right?
And so there's lots of sensitivities and checking the boxes there. But an organization that's making the e-commerce world happen. So we'll leave it at that. But MODEX. So to attend, to register for the event, you can go to MODEXshow.com. Again, it's free. They do a great job. A lot of great keynotes. A lot of great networking. The exhibition show is very unique, as you like to talk about, the big
They're practically
tractors
building
and
factories and warehouses in the thing.
yeah, it's really a great show. So modexshow.com. All right. With all that said, again, really have enjoyed the conversation we've had, and looking forward to hear. Maybe we'll have y'all back on after Seuss Japan to talk about some of the key takeaways. That's always an interesting show to have. But Mary Waters and Scott McMurray with the Georgia Department of Economic Development, thanks so much for joining us today. And Doug McMaster, Senior Vice President, U.S. Operations with Umura America Company. Doug, great to have you back on the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
You bet. Safe travels to you as you head overseas.
Yeah, good
Thanks.
luck.
Thank
Try to
you.
get some sleep.
Yep. Thank you.
Great show, Greg. Really, what a great way to cap off a week. Looking forward to what takes place in Savannah in a month or so. But be sure
Go.
be sure to check out other upcoming events, replays of our interviews, other resources at supplychainnowradio.com. Greg, where can you find us? Quick
Besides
quiz.
supplychainnowradio.com?
Yeah.
YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere else that you get your podcasts.
Excellent, man. I was worried if you're going to pass that pop quiz.
I didn't
but
even
you
look at
nailed
the
it.
sign that's
Okay.
right here beside me.
So to our audience, find us on Apple Podcasts, all other sites that Greg just named. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. On behalf of the entire Supply Chain Now Radio team, this is Scott Luton wishing you a wonderful week ahead, and we'll see you next time on Supply Chain Now Radio. Thanks, everybody.